other than my son, there aren't too many people out there who know very much about me. And so most people probably, I don't think that they'd be surprised, but they just wouldn't realize that for a very long time, I basically swore off music altogether. I stopped messing with it or having anything to do with it. And I could go into the reasons for that, but I'm not going to. The thing about it is, before that, I was actually quite into music, enjoyed it quite a bit, and spent a lot of time listening to and paying attention to a lot of the music and a lot of the people who were making it. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to use it as a sort of an example, if you will, for the changes in attitude piece that I'm doing for the Daily Summation for Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, by the way. I'm Kurt, and today is Tuesday, the 26th of October, 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. And again, I'm going to talk about the subject of changes in attitude, and I'm going to use music as a sort of a baseline to discuss that. Before I get into sort of my free conversation, I'm going to spend a little bit of time in my notes so that you have some idea where I'm going. So let me go ahead and start that. One of the benefits of having been alive for over half a century is that you see how things have changed over the course of time. In some ways, things have definitely changed for the better. It's easier to get from place to place, for example. One can communicate with much greater ease than in the past. Information, if you're careful to screen what you get, is truly at one's fingertips. Here's the yep again thing. I still remember when vinyl was probably the best medium for music and other performances. Some would argue it still is. One of the things about those plastic discs covered in grooves is what they contained. I'm not saying there was not risque music and activity. You can literally find such things into the early 1920s if you want to go back, and probably farther if you really wanted to. That said, the majority of what was, quote, out there, end of quote, was nothing like that. It's very likely you've heard of that inventive, sometimes outrageous quartet who went by the Fab Four in terms of nicknames. Their, quote, real, end of quote, name was, of course, the Beatles. I remember hearing their music early on. I was born when some of this stuff was written, so I didn't hear it as early as I could have done. Let me just give you two titles to think about. The first, I'm Happy Just to Dance with You. The second, I Want to Hold Your Hand. How about on this side of the pond? Pretty much everybody knows about the king of rock and roll, as they used to like to call him, Elvis Presley. I'm not saying he never did anything musically controversial. That considered, when we talk about just what he did, for the most part it was forays into genres other than white performers or other white performers, were scared of. I thought other than sounded odd. I guess what I'm trying to say is this. Looking at what's out there today, and even looking back more than 30 years, you can find people like the artist formerly known as Prince. I promise you the majority of recent music is nothing like wholesome, not even in general. What I'm getting at here is just not all that complicated. We've gone from being a society largely of innocence to one in which even comparatively tame stuff from the modern day would have made my elders blush. You may not think that's all that big a deal. From my viewpoint, I'm thinking it's time to let particularly children, but others as well, experience innocence again. The changes in attitude from a little over half a century ago to today are awfully stark. What has it really caused people to gain? And that's something I really want you to think about. Really consider that. What have we gained as a result of that? I have recently, one of the things you can do on Facebook is you'll find that they put these video clips that are parts of movies, and some of them I look at and I go, yeah, I know what movie that came from or whatever, but some of them are literally absolutely gruesome stuff that I would never pay money to see. I'd never go to the theater and watch that stuff, and quite frankly, I don't really tend to watch it on places like Netflix either. And there's a reason for that. I'm not going to tell you that I'm so totally white as the driven snow, clean as the driven snow, which people will argue is not all that clean lots of times, and there's something to that. But I'm not going to argue that I'm that person, but I'll tell you this. I do not make it my business to do things that increase my worldliness. I'm not saying I never do anything that does that, but I am telling you that I really try not to do that sort of thing. And my recommendation for people now, and quite frankly, if I could go back in the past, I'd probably tell them this in the past as well, is you really ought to stop living in a life or a world in which you are worldly according to the standards that you will see in the modern day. People go to war and have been doing so for a very long time, for thousands of years. People who went to World War II, went and fought in World War II, came back, and those who knew them would argue that they were not the same people. But here's the thing. If you look at those people and you look at who they settled in to be, for the most part, what you're going to find is they came back to the standard mundane lifestyle that they had lived before. By the way, excuse the noise. If you hear it, my son is enjoying TV shows, and I kind of let him do his thing when he's doing that. But yeah, so now here's the thing. Look at what happened in the Korean War, and you'll find that most of the people, yet again, came back and became respectable parts of society. Then look at what happened in the Vietnam conflict. What happened there? First of all, many people were besmirched, were beaten in verbally and so forth, not necessarily physically, but were mistreated and so forth. And secondly, for many of those people, what they had gone through literally scarred them for life, and they could not come back. And I'm here to tell you, I'm seeing the same thing in our more recent conflicts here in the United States. People who've been to Afghanistan, people who've been to Iraq, people who've been to even places you wouldn't even think of, Sudan, or I forget which one it was, one of the Falklands or wherever it was. I don't even remember now. But people who went to these various places in South America, have been scarred in ways that they are having a hard time coming back from. I'm not saying that people in World War II didn't have that same hard time. In fact, I would argue that they had every bit as hard a time, but they realized at that point the importance of getting back to being a person of innocence. Now, some of those people came back and they had nightmares till the day they died. Some of them are still around and maybe still are having nightmares, right? Not very many. Most of them are gone these days. But what I'm saying to you is this. You may not think that the changes in attitude that we've seen that have made people think that being more worldly is a good thing are a problem. I remember when people, were expected, particularly as children, to be innocent, to be peaceful and play games, and the most they might have done is cops and robbers or something like that. These days, you just don't see that sort of thing going on in the same sorts of ways. In fact, those people are being told what they used to would have done, or their parents would have done, or whatever, is wrong, right? That's what they're being told. I think that it's time for us to realize that we can be innocent and move back towards that. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap this up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt. And today is Tuesday, the 26th of October of 2021, just beginning that work week properly. Tomorrow will be Wednesday, where we'll be in the middle of most people's work week. It'll be the 27th of October of 2021. Thank you for everyone who's come on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a boxing glove or a plus on Rumble for a positive feedback. You can give me a minus for a negative feedback if you feel the need to do that. You can give me a thumbs up or a like on YouTube if you want to do that for a positive feedback. And you can give me a thumbs down or a dislike on YouTube if you want to give me a negative feedback and feel like you have reason to do that. On any platform that you see me, you can, of course, comment, and I will do my best to pay attention to the comments and really try and see what it is that you're trying to say. Again, that's unless it's a rubbish comment where I don't believe the person doing the commenting has good intent or whatever. Subject for today has been changes in attitude, and tomorrow we're going to talk about the importance of scale. And this was brought on by people doing a comparison, and I'm going to tell you what the comparison was. And you can do your research if you want. Maybe you'll come up with what I'm saying before I actually say it tomorrow. But they were comparing the Northern Territory of Australia to Texas. And I'm here to tell you that's maybe not the best comparison in the world in many regards. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you. And hopefully we will see you again on Wednesday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Tuesday, October 26th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.